Too often times we hear people talk about what we don't have or what they wish we had. So my approach to this is just to help share with people what all is available. When people start to become more engaged, then it just makes everything richer.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to our community. Today is Tuesday, the second Tuesday of the month, and that's the day for our community. So I'm excited to be back in the studio here in downtown Peoria, the Widecast studios, and hosting our community, and I've decided media production. And I've got a special guest with me today. Her name is Cindy Neal. She is the owner of Express Employment Professionals. You're also the chairwoman of the NFIB, which I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is a part of the Illinois Small Business Association, somehow affiliated with that. Is that correct?
Yeah. Actually, I am the state leadership chair.
Okay.
For the Leadership Council for the NFIB, which is the National Federation of Independent Business. So each state has a director, and so we are a grassroots small business organization,
awesome,
lobbying both state and federal on federal issues. So
yeah, very good, very good. Well, thanks for clarifying that. I did a little bit of research and came across that, and the website said Illinois Small Business Association in big bold print, so I thought there's got to be some connection there.
Yeah, we're all about pro-business for sure.
Well, thank you, Cindy, for joining us today and being a part of the conversation where we're going to try to talk about the importance of being humble, and we're going to approach that from the perspective of how we do our work, which pretty much everybody out there, I think, can relate to. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your company, Express Professional Services, is that right? Express
Employment Professionals.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, got it. So actually, Express Employment Professionals is a franchise company.
Okay.
We now have over, collectively, 800, and I think we're up to 830 offices in the U.S., Canada, and we have affiliate offices in South Africa.
Wow.
And actually, I've been in the staffing business, putting people and businesses together since we chiseled on stone tablets, BC, before computers.
Yeah.
And the only thing we had automated back in those days was literally our payroll function.
Wow.
So as a franchise company, though, if you travel around the United States or Canada and go to local offices, you find folks that are invested in their local community, putting people to work. And although we have the same systems and technology and ISO certified, a lot of great things when you put us together collectively, we are still local business partners, serving our backyard, if you will.
Right.
So, and I've been doing this now for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
well, congratulations
it's been a fun ride.
You.
Thank you.
You've obviously met a ton of people over that period of 30 years, and you said you cover a territory that's about 30
it's
mile
about
radius.
30 miles, so yeah, the Tri-County area.
Yeah, so a large number of businesses that you work with, a large number of individuals that you work with.
Yes.
So congratulations to you for what you're doing to help support the economy.
Right.
Here in our local community.
Yeah, here's the scary part, Andy, is some of the people that I worked with initially when I started 30 years ago, I've employed their children, and now I've got grandchildren.
Uh-oh.
That's scary. Yeah, so
well,
we've come full circle. Yeah.
That's great. You get to know the entire family.
Absolutely.
That way. I bet you have some interesting conversations.
You bet.
So let's talk a little bit about the I guess the breadth of your work. How many businesses are you engaged with? How many employees, for lack of a better term, and it's probably not what you call them,
Sure.
Do you work with on an annual basis?
Oh, on an annual basis? Oh, goodness. Well, annually we do work, because there's seasonal companies that we work with throughout the year. So when we get to the end of a year, we've probably worked with 200 different companies.
Wow.
And employed technically some thousands of people by the end of a year. So any given week, of course, the census changes the number of companies we're dealing with, and certainly the number of associates we call our employees out in the field.
Right.
So, and anything from, entry-level general labor kind of folks to skilled trades, professional, technical, administrative roles. So any company that employs a couple of employees could be a prospect for staffing.
Right.
So,
do you work with nonprofits?
We do.
Do you?
Yes, absolutely.
That's interesting. That's good to know, as we talked about offline, we have some needs at the Y that I think you might be able
Absolutely.
to help us with. So I look forward to having some more conversation there. So as part of the I've Decided community, I know Kim has prepared you a little bit for the conversation. One of the things that Kim does really well is puts out a weekly winning resource, and there's always a theme to the week. And this week's weekly winning word, as Kim has framed it, is humble. And I think from the perspective of employment, that is a really important asset for future and current employees to have, is humility. Talk to me a little bit about, and to our viewers, a little bit about how do you approach, and you had told me offline before we started that you do some of the soft skill training and things like that. You know, it's not just, people don't just come into your office and say, hey, I need a job. You say, hey, go over here, right? There's a process that is in place. You have to vet some of these people, right? Because you want to make sure that you're sending qualified candidates to your business clients.
Right.
So what approach do you take in your role to help people understand what it is they're going to be doing, and the importance of being humble and some of those other skills that they need to take into the job with them?
And I just can relate to being humble and having humility, and that start a business.
Sure.
And go out and knock on doors and get the door slammed in your face. It's been an interesting ride. But when we meet people and our associates or employees, the folks that we hire and place in the community, and then we call our companies or our clients, client company customers. And so our role is to find great companies looking for phenomenal people and make that match together. So when we meet people looking for work, and we visit with job seekers from all walks of life, and humility is, there is no job that's beneath someone.
Yeah.
And every job deserves respect. I would never place someone in an unsafe place or into a role that I personally wouldn't do myself, because every job has value.
Absolutely.
And so some folks are going to be in entry-level positions all their life, but we give them those opportunities so they can put food on the table for their families and be respected for what they do. Now, some jobs I wouldn't be able to handle physically, but of course, it's been a great opportunity to do that. Working with people from all walks of life, but our client companies expect that when they call us as a professional service, that the people that we send are a great match, have the skills requested, and kind of can come into the place of business, hit the ground running, and get the job done. So when we meet people, we test them from the very first contact. From whether it's a phone conversation, how they answer the phone when we're following up with an online application, how they treat our front desk person when they come in, if they tell us they have a driver's license or don't have a driver's license, and we've got a big beautiful window and we see them get in the driver's side of a car, So everything, we're looking at all those details. So we set someone up with an appointment. Because of the pandemic, we've done some different things, technologically speaking.
Some virtual stuff.
Zoom meeting, virtual telephone interviews, you name it, to minimize some of the exposure, which we hate because we're people, right? And then we assess skills, we verify employment, we talk to previous employers, we get to know that person, what can they do, what do they want to do, and sometimes those things aren't in alignment, so we have to counsel. And get folks matched up then with the right companies, whether it's for contract temporary work. And a lot of our positions are what we call contract to hire, meaning it's the intention of that company to add to their team.
Right.
And this is a great way to get introduced to someone, and
So there's the potential for long-term employment. It's not just always a temporary thing.
Absolutely.
Right?
We had two.
Depends on the performance.
Yeah. And we had 2 long-term people this week that will be going company. So that have been on long-term contract opportunities. So
that's great.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's great. And I think that's something that a lot of people overlook, and you know, in the employment professional business is most people look at it as a temporary setting, but there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for those to advance and become a part of the organization on a permanent
And we
basis.
do have some success stories where the folks that we placed in a company got hired, they've promoted, and now they're calling us for additional employees because they've gotten to that position.
That's kind of full circle.
Leadership role.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So to simplify it, the definition of being humble is to not be proud and not thinking that you're better than somebody else. And I think that when you think about the importance of being humble and how you do your work, you have to be willing to listen. You have to be willing to take direction. You have to be willing to receive criticism. Hopefully it's constructive in the way that it's delivered, but to be honest, not everybody has the skills to deliver it in a constructive way, right? And I struggle with that sometimes too, because you want to get the point across and you got to move on to the next thing, but the employee needs to be willing to receive that, right? Because and that takes humility to do that, to listen, okay, maybe I'm not doing this right. I have to do better, so I need to listen to that coaching, right?
Yeah.
And it's important to hear it from a coaching perspective too, I think.
And in my 30 years in business, we have given people opportunities, and so when we have to take the negative step of a termination, which happens, it's real life, it never has come as a surprise in all my years.
Right.
I mean, we've given the opportunities, we've coached, and if the performance doesn't change, it's it's nothing personal, it's business, and we have to move on.
Right.
Sometimes there are folks that come in, they're not workforce ready. And so I say to be unclear is to be unkind.
True.
And so like you just alluded to, it's difficult when in this fast-paced world, but we have to slow down and be kind and coach. And then a lot of folks will refer to other employee assistance places. I mean, obviously, if someone doesn't have some of the basics covered, they're not going to be workforce ready. They're going to come to work with a lot of baggage. So we back up, help them get the right services in the community, and then when they're ready to come back, then let's get them placed.
I often say in my line of work, and when I'm talking with my staff team, the biggest asset that we have is the people who work for us, right? I mean, at the Y, we have a balance sheet that's worth about $12 million, says we're worth about $12 million. We have a ton of property, great big building, lots of equipment, tons of resources, but none of that matters if we don't have good people work for us, right? And that takes time, and you have to invest time and energy into those people in order to present that culture that you want, that makes people want to come back, right? Because it's the people that come into our organization that make us viable. Right.
And if you poll people, it's not necessarily about the money. It may be about the cause and the coworkers and the leaders. And, as a leader, sometimes we say the people are our greatest asset.
Absolutely.
Sometimes they're the biggest pain in the asset. Oops.
I hear you.
But that's what we deal with as business leaders.
It's a challenge to deal with people in every walk of life. Even at home, it's a challenge to deal with people. When there's people around, there's going to be difficulty. There's going to be disagreement, right? And it's how do you work through all of that in order to produce a product that other people want to engage in, right? And you have to be willing to listen. You have to be willing to engage in conversation. You have to be willing to be respectful.
Right.
You have to be willing to be humble, to listen to others' point of views, and have those conversations. There was an article that Kim shared as part of our weekly running resource this week that were the 5 key steps to becoming more humble. So I'm just going to walk through these 5 points, and we'll just have a conversation about them. The first one was building confidence. And I noticed in the article it said that confidence is the key to living a full life. And I agreed. It jumped right off the page to me. I mean, confidence is not arrogance, right?
Correct.
Arrogance is a completely different thing. But you have to be confident, and confidence is not the enemy of being humble. You have to believe in what it is that you're doing. So when you think about building confidence, what does that make you think of?
In our world, it really kind of goes to the interview. Right? When somebody comes in, typically they want to get the job, they're nervous, and so we help with our process and just being humble in conversation. And sometimes we have to pull a little bit of information out, but as I listen to my consultants as they're interviewing, pretty soon there's some laughter and and then that person's confident. They get warm and comfortable, and we're making a friend because we want to get to know that person. What do they like? What do they want, and what are their goals and aspirations? So
absolutely, and that's important to really engage people in that type of conversation. Another key point was ask questions. Don't think that you always know the answer, because you don't. You have to be able to understand. It doesn't matter what your role is, whether you're at the very top of the organization or you're in an entry-level position. It just doesn't matter. You don't know everything, and you have to be willing to ask questions in order to learn, which in turn builds confidence, right? The more that you learn. So what do you think about that?
With that, I'm trying to think of the cliche or what people say. People don't remember you for what you've said to them. You get remembered by how you made somebody feel.
Oh, yeah.
And back to the point
Absolutely.
about questions, it shows an interest, and you might say, well, gosh, that Cindy, wow, she was an incredible person, because I spent time asking questions and getting to know you, and I made you feel good about our relationship.
I agree with that completely, right?
Yeah.
Making people remember how you made them feel.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there was a point in the article that jumped out to me as well around this top or this piece of it. It shows, when you ask questions, it shows people that you want to learn more.
And you're interested, you bet.
And that you're interested. And I think that that's really important. And it's not a weakness. A lot of people think, they fear that, oh my gosh, if I don't know this, they're going to think that I'm not, sufficient or whatever. But I think for most people, the opposite is true. We want you to ask questions.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter if you're in work or if you're in sport or whatever. I coach some youth sports and stuff like that. And I love it when the kids ask for clarification.
You bet.
And I always give them the opportunity. I give them some instructions and say, do you understand? And if you don't, ask me, because I want to make sure that you get what it is we're trying to do. And I think that that's so important.
Yeah.
The third thing was get out of your comfort zone. Make yourself uncomfortable, right? That really helps build confidence in humility as well. Try new things. Take risk.
Yep. And I think that's probably the biggest stretch for most people, is to get out of your comfort zone. We kind of snap back to what's easy and comfortable.
Absolutely.
But, we do that too when we offer positions. Sometimes people are, there's back to that confidence thing, and, you can do this. So we're cheerleaders. And again, it doesn't behoove us to not make a good match. Because if we put someone somewhere they're not comfortable, or we can't stretch them a little bit, where they'll go, wow, new skill, great people to work with, then, we're going to turn around and get bid if we don't make that good match and put somebody where they don't belong. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're looking for a new job, you're in a situation you need employment.
Yeah.
You may not get offered the job that you think you need or that you want. So you have to be willing to kind of challenge yourself a little bit, right? And understand that, hey, I can learn new things. I just have to approach it from the right perspective.
Right.
And humility is a big part of that.
Right. And we're kind of if you will, a supermarket of jobs, that there are places or industries or companies that maybe you wouldn't think about until we talk about the variety of things and places we have available. So
two more pieces to this. The next one was remember your goals. And then I thought when I was reading that, well, first you have to set them. So setting goals is really important. And once you do that, you have to remember and you have to kind of reflect on those things too, right? And I think it said in the article, remind yourself daily.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And if you set the goals, they need to be realistic.
Sure.
Of course, smart. They need to be measurable and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
And we
I
have
had
to
that
track
written
them.
down. Yeah. Smart goals are so important.
Yes,
right?
yes. And then if you've set too high of expectations, it helps you figure out where maybe you need to train your people and help your people and develop them to become better leaders. And yeah,
that's good. That's good. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the SMART goal method, it is be specific, be measurable, action-oriented, realistic or results-focused, and they have to be time-bound, right? Got to do this by a certain time frame.
Right.
And if you structure your goals in that format, then you're able to measure your success.
Absolutely.
So it's a really good method to follow. We do that in my line of work, and it really has helped the staff that I work with understand kind of what their responsibility is.
Exactly.
So I think it's good for all of us. And then the last one is reflect on your behavior. Keep a journal of your success. Think about what it is that you're trying to do, how you're trying to approach it, and then think about that. Take some time to reflect on a daily basis, a weekly basis, whatever it is that works for you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. So this has been great. This has been great.
this has
And
been
I'm
fun.
watching the clock, and
We out of time
it's
already,
20
Andy?
minutes.
Oh
This
my
is
gosh.
flying by here.
Sure.
So, I just want to again thank you for taking the time to come in and talk
My
with us a
pleasure.
little bit this week and share a little
Sure.
bit about Express Employment Professionals,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're located in the Heights, so if there's anybody out there either looking for work or looking for somebody to help fill some roles that you have,
Right.
you had shared with me before we went online that there's a lot of jobs out there that are unfilled right
Exactly.
now, right? Do you want to talk a little bit
Exactly.
about that?
Yeah, sure. We are kind of back to the point as business is resurging. Obviously,
right.
not everybody's going to survive this pandemic.
Right.
That breaks my heart. But we have companies just out of the blue without outgoing efforts calling us and saying, help. We're posting on job boards. We're getting all these applications. We're not qualified. We narrow down. We set up 4 interviews, 3 no show. So how do you help us get the people we need to get through this crazy time? So it's
So if
fun.
you're looking for work or if you're looking to fill some roles that you haven't been able to fill yourself in your line of business, contact Cindy.
We
She
would
can
love
help
it.
you out.
Yep.
And if
Great.
you have